the old theater seat, and the plasma radio waves from the cosmos way out in space.
In old little town of Bellingham, Washington, once upon a time, there were two theaters. One was called the Grand Theater. It was on Holly Street. It was once grand, but then started to get tired and a little frayed around its edges. There was another theater called the American Theater on Cornwall Street. That was the hoity-toity of the theaters. If you were someone, and the show was really something of a show, you would be at the American Theater enjoying the show. If you were kind of down and out and had nothing to do, and you just wanted to get in out of the rain, you would go to the Grand Theater and not really care what was showing in the show. A patron of the Grand Theater was a man by the name of Willie the Wino. Now, Willie has had a storied life. When he was in college studying engineering,
Willie wanted to prove that yes, with enough effort, he could not only reach the unreachable star, he could be the unreachable star. In his spare time, Willie made a Tesla coil in an unused room in the electrical engineering laboratory building. He finished the Tesla coil, then he connected it to the electrical service panel of the electrical engineering building. He turned it on. The Tesla coil shot out sparks everywhere in the electrical engineering laboratory. He tried to walk into the sparks of the Tesla coil, and he started to glow real angry, with lots of sparks and feeling shocked, but really feeling weird. He felt like he was becoming a glowing star until everything went out. It turned out that he blew out the main power generator used for the electrical engineering laboratory, and all the lights went out in the electrical engineering building of college. That was not very nice. He almost got kicked out. Not very nice.
Got such a big shock that not only affected his own life, it turned out years later it affected the lives of many other people. After college, Willie got a job at a local radio station. That did not last long, because one night when he was playing Chopin's symphony, he accidentally dropped an F-bomb on the air. The radio station got fined $350,000 by the Federal Communications Commission, and Willie lost his job. Well, Willie's next job was working in the control room of an electrical power plant. By this time, he had been drinking heavier and heavier. Well, one evening during his late night shift, Willie was a bit woozy and tipsy. He was seated at the master control panel for the electrical distribution network. He started to fall asleep, and he decided to get up and stretch.
But in doing so, he accidentally tipped over the glass of beer that was delicately balanced on the control panel. Well, well, well. A beautiful cascading river of beer flowed into the control panel.
Well, that caused things to short out, and the entire distribution system flaked out, which caused the entire grid to shut down, and the city lost its power. So for a second and final time, Willie the wino got fired. After causing the city of Bellingham to lose its power for one evening and getting fired from the electrical company, Willie did find a job that lasted a few years. He worked at the Western Thrift Store, which was in the Quackenbush building on Cornwall and Holly Street. He worked in the stock department, making sure that the merchandise that was sold was promptly replaced on the shelves with merchandise from the storage room. Everything went fine for several years until he came in quite drunk. Well, he fell against a row of shelving in the store. That caused that row of shelving to fall, bumping into the next row of shelving, and several rows of shelving with the merchandise tumbled down like a chain of dominoes. Well, Willie got fired for one more time, and this was the last time. Well, at that time, thy lords of the cosmos, those who govern all the galaxies with a gentle but firm hand, have decided this is enough. Through some very technologically advanced arm twisting, the Lords convinced the Social Security Administration to grant Willie the Social Security supplemental income for disability. They were not much, but they were enough. At this time, Willie ran a very interesting, humorous, but strange life. During the day, he would wander aimlessly around downtown Bellingham, dancing on the streets, dancing in the sidewalks, and dancing in the parks. He would not be listening to music that we can hear. He would be listening to music sent to him by the Lords of the Cosmos. He would do pirouettes. He would do skipping. He would do jumping jacks. He would drop and do 100 push-ups. He would skip and jump over railings. He was a wild dancer. He converted downtown Bellingham into a ballet theater of his own. Meanwhile, while Willie was dancing to the Lord's tunes and becoming the star of the Lord's Ballet of Bellingham, the poor Grand Theater was getting very, very tired and not weathering its age well at all. The American theater, in the meantime, was shining like a star. The hoity-toity, the elite, went there to see the best shows. The Grand Theater got so old and tired, it decided to stay open 24 hours. Well, what that meant, that the Grand Theater provided a place for the Lord's official dancer, Willie, to stay each night. The theater was his home. In particular, inside the Grand Theater, there was one seat that was Willie's home. It was a seat on the left-hand side, about halfway back from the screen, in the aisle. Over the years, as Willie got more and more careless with his personal habits, that seat got totally saturated with Willie's holy water. If anyone had looked very carefully at that one seat in the Grand Theater, they would have noticed a purplish haze clinging to the surface of the cushion. What that was an electrical plasma discharge. There was a source of high voltage and high frequency electricity similar to a Tesla coil in the Spark Museum of Electrical Invention a few blocks away from the Grand Theater. Whether or not there was a Tesla coil in that seat, we will never know. But yes, there was high frequency, high voltage, electrical energy emitting from that theater seat to the air, to the world, and to the cosmos. There was an electrical radio connection between that theater seat and the cosmos. Thanks to the zero budget for maintenance at the Grand Theater, the seat was able to do its daily official duties for the lords of the cosmos. With no money, the theater never replaced its burned-out light bulbs in the auditorium. It was 7 a.m. after Willie had left to go to the Horseshoe Cafe on Holly Street for breakfast and continue his official duties as the Lord's official ballet dancer for Bellingham. The seat quietly and discreetly detached itself from the frame and ascended along the wall of the auditorium until it reached a hole in the ceiling caused by a panel that had dropped out decades earlier. Ascending through the labyrinth of the area above the ceiling, the seat went through a hole in the ventilation shaft, also caused by a panel that dropped loose decades earlier. In the ventilation shaft, the seat made its way to the roof ventilation chamber and then outdoors. From the roof of the theater, the seat paused, gathered its bearings, and made the decision. It quietly and silently shot up from that location, which is at sea level, to an altitude of 500,000 feet, way above the altitudes of any airplanes and way beyond the reach of any radar. For at 500,000 feet was what's called the ionosphere. The ionosphere is a layer of Earth's atmosphere where ions, which are molecules stripped of electrons, held their court. The ionosphere is also the reason why amateur radio operators can communicate long distances on shortwave radio without a satellite, for it is the ionosphere that bounces radio waves from the Earth back to Earth. It is also the method at which the theater seat can fully communicate and gather intelligence and gather energy from the lords of the cosmos. If one were to look at that precise spot in the atmosphere, you would see large sparks of whitish blue flame leaping out from the seat and intermingling themselves with the plasmas of the ionosphere. Each daily task of communicating and exchanging energy and intelligence took less than 15 minutes, at the end of which the seat quickly descended from 500,000 feet back to sea level, the ceiling of the theater, and quietly worked its way through the ventilation system, through the shaft above the ceiling, down the wall, and back into its frame, and reattached itself. It was done by 10 a.m. Nobody in the theater ever noticed. After several weeks of this activity, a college student by the name of Peter Pirani wanted to see the rerun of Star Wars now playing at the Grand Theater. At about noon, Peter walked in, paid his admission, and felt his way down the aisle since there were no lights, and sat down in a seat. Suddenly, without warning, Peter felt a jolt of high voltage, high frequency electrical energy searing through his body. Frightened, he looked down and he noticed from his fingers flames of plasma arc were emanating from the tips of his fingers into the air. His head felt like it was one charged ball of energy. He felt lots of intelligence, lots of knowledge suddenly coursing through his brain. He could not figure it out. Frightened, he immediately got up and ran out of the theater. He felt charges of energy as he ran away from the building. However, within a few hundred yards, the energy went away, yet he felt some sort of weird feeling thereafter. 2 days later, Peter went to the American Theater with his girlfriend to see the opera. The Seattle Opera Company was doing an outreach performance of Rheingold, one of the operas of the Ring cycle. Peter and his girl enjoyed the show. Unbeknownst to either Peter or Sarah, his girlfriend, energy coursed through Peter's body and into the seat of the American theater in which he was sitting. That seat was row E, seat 1. That seat, if anyone had looked at it after Peter sat in it, started to emanate a very, very faint glow of plasma energy. Having enjoyed the show, Peter and Sarah left the theater and walked their way to the university and went into their dormitory building, totally unaware that major changes were being done to Peter. Now, in the meantime, there's a businessman from Seattle. He hated everything but being rich. He ran a company that exploited the environment and exploited labor. Well, he visited his son in Bellingham, and he and his wife and the son and his wife went to a show at the American Theater. It was another opera performance by the Seattle Opera, for which this man was a major donor. The man sat down,
row E, seat 1.
He felt a weird feeling, but he enjoyed the show, and the family left and went back to the son's home for the rest of the evening.
Meanwhile, seat one of row E in the American theater exchanged urgent communications, intelligence, and orders with the seat in the Grand Theater.
Much earlier, Willie's father died in an accident at the plant owned by this man's company. It was an accident caused by lack of maintenance. It was clear the company's fault, but using legal techniques, the company never had to pay a penalty. The energies surrounding Willie's father's death were immediately felt by the cosmos, and the cosmos felt very angry at what was going on with the many parts of this man's business. So the cosmos felt it was a time for action. That time was coming very soon. The man and his wife made one more trip to Bellingham to visit his son and his family. And once more, the four people went to the American theater to see yet another opera of the series. It was called Götterdämmerung. Once again, the man sat in the same seat. And after they enjoyed the opera, without knowing anything, the seat, communicating with the seat in the Grand Theater, and communicating with Willie, and communicating with the cosmos, decided, damn it, the time has come. Let's execute. Several events started to happen along a very well choreographed plan of action. Peter and his girlfriend Sarah politely excused himself from a gathering of students in the lounge, got up and left the building. They nodded at each other. Peter walked toward the railing of the plaza that overlooked the city and the bay. Sarah walked across the campus, climbed the hill, being very careful to maintain a clear line of sight between her and Peter standing by the railing. Once she achieved that, she stopped. Peter then extended one arm with his fingers splayed over the bay in the city. He then extended the other arm with the fingers tightly together up toward the hill where Sarah was standing. Sarah, in the meantime, extended one arm with the fingers closed down towards Peter, the other arm in the other direction up towards the sky, toward the south of Bellingham, with her fingers splayed as wide as she possibly could without going in pain. Willie, in the meantime, got up from his seat in the Grand Theater, walked out, turned right, and walked up Holly Street until he crossed Cornwall. Then he crossed Holly, so he stood at the corner that was on the same sidewalk as the entrance of the American Theater, about 100 feet away from him. He extended one arm towards the entrance of the American Theater and another arm extended up towards the university. He waited. The opera ended. The final chord echoed away in the auditorium of the American Theater, and the curtain closed. Thunderous applause, standing ovation. Unbeknownst to anyone, a tiny bolt of lightning clapped very softly, overwhelmed by the sound of the applause, and nobody heard it. From the seat on which the man sat to the man's body, he felt a searing stab of pain throughout his body. Being a proper gentleman, he tried to conceal his grimacing of pain. However, his wife and his son and his wife noticed it. The four of them decided to leave the theater as quick as possible and get the heck back to the Leopold Hotel, where they pushed their way out, streaming up the aisles towards the exit. As the foursome of the man and his wife and his boy and his wife made their way up the aisle toward the exit of the American Theater, Willie, Peter, and Sarah noticed pulsating purple glows of energy emanating from their hands. They felt a slight tingling, no pain, but they also felt anticipations of excitement and a sense of justice. As the foursome made their way to the exit, and the energy got very, very strong, an order was issued at that time with the locks on the doors of the Leopold Hotel, the lock, to prevent the man and his friends from entering the hotel, just in case these next events failed to happen. But they did not fail. Suddenly, a very dim laser beam emanated between Willie and Peter, then from Peter to his girlfriend Sarah. So now we have full communication from Willie in downtown to Peter on the campus and to Sarah high on the hill. A few seconds later, bursts of plasma energy started to emanate from Peter's hand aimed over downtown and the waterfront, and from Sarah's hand emanating up towards the skies south of Bellingham. Those plasmas became very strong and could be seen by others around them. People began to wonder what is going on. The man and his wife, his son and his wife, exited from the theater and started to turn left to head toward the Leopold Hotel. Suddenly, a strong, loud bolt of lightning emanated from Willie's hand extended towards the theater and enveloped the man, and he started to scream. There was a loud clap of thunder that awoke every guest in both the American Hotel, which is a residence hotel next to the American Theater, as well as the Leopold Hotel down the street. People were turning their heads towards what was going on. The bolt of lightning immediately got so bright it seared into the eyes of anyone looking towards it. People for miles around could see the halo of light in the sky over Bellingham. It was so bright that even Peter had to close his eyes to shield from the brightness. Sarah was looking up towards the sky as she was told, and she saw four strong bolts of lightning arching from her fingers and scanning the southern sky. She did not feel pain. She felt immense energy and a joy of being part of this whole operation. At the same time, the seat in the Grand Theater shot up through the theater into the sky and hovered over downtown Bellingham. Bolts of lightning emanated from Willie and Peter and Sarah to that seat that spread a circle of lightning over the city with loud popping, crackling, and thunder. The bolts of lightning from Sarah's hands caused a matrix of lightning that coursed through the skies
south of Bellingham on south towards Seattle. This whole process lasted several minutes. Unbeknownst to anyone else, or Peter, or Sarah, or Willie, several people throughout the area started to feel intense pain and started to scream in agony, whether they be at home, at work, with friends, whomever. They screamed and screamed. The chorus of screams started to echo throughout the land. And suddenly, the whole thing stopped, and there was dead silence. A low voice emanated from the dead silence. Reckoning is at hand. You must pay for all the pain that you cause to humankind. It is that time. Yes, you thought it would never come, but that time is now. Feel the pain. Feel the pain that you inflicted upon all for your own short-sighted gain. There was dead silence thereafter for several minutes as the pain of reckoning is felt by everyone. Peter, Sarah, and Willie dropped their arms and felt totally at peace. When Peter and Sarah re-entered the student lounge, everyone therein stood up, stopped what they were doing, and bowed toward them in total silence. At the same time, the locks on the doors of the Leopold Hotel unlocked and the doors gently swung open. Likewise, the doors of the American Hotel swung open by themselves as well. A few seconds later, people began to walk out of both of those hotels in silence and approached and encircled the intersection of Holly and Cornwall, where Willie stood. As if by a gentle signal, Peter, along with Willie and Sarah, the three of them began to sway gently back and forth. Around Willie, the people on the street swayed with him. Around Peter and Sarah, the people in the lounge swayed with them. They soon then started to sway their arms back and forth, slowly, silently. Little did they know that they were swaying their arms and dancing in precise tune with a hymn. The hymn is Amazing Grace. Willie, Peter, and Sarah started to softly sing Amazing Grace. After the first verse, others around them started to quietly join in on the chorus. A few hundred students in the lounge at the university, along with the several hundred people standing in the streets of downtown Bellingham, started to join in. Several hundred turned to several thousands as others joined in the streets, in restaurants, in theaters, in bars, in dormitories, everywhere. The chorus soon passed along to the cities and towns around Bellingham, then to Seattle, then to cities beyond. Through the radiant energy of the cosmos, soon the whole world
joined in a perfect chorus of amazing grace, sung in total peace and endearing love. I love you all. If you see me in Bellingham, yes, I'm the goofy guy wearing colorful clothing, either riding my bicycle singing, or dancing, or volunteering at the Park Museum. Please say hi.